here we are, the Olympus 20mm 1.4 Pro. It comes with a oddly rather large carry bag with the new OM Systems logo on it. And this lens also comes with the lens hood. There was a complaint about some of the earlier Olympus lenses. I think it's important to come with one to protect the element and stop flare on the glass. And then we have the lens. Now it does feel like an Olympus Pro lens. Nice metal body, sturdy feel without being too heavy. The focus ring has a nice amount of resistance there without being too heavy. But the only thing is, as I'm sure you've all heard by now, the lack of the focus clutch and mechanical stops. The only other difference to the other primes is the new OM logo on the lens cap. Olympus has now gone. This is the first lens from the new company since the takeover. So this isn't an unboxing video, or just an unboxing video. I'm going to get this on the camera tomorrow, get out and have a play with it, see if it meets my expectations. Join me today in the beautiful mountains of South Wales. I'm out in the wet conditions that the Olympus Pro gear is well known for performing in, such as the EM12 and the new 20mm 1.4 Pro that I've been using now for about a week. Now, I've used it to help a fellow photographer who specialises in motorcycle photography review the EM1X. I've shot family and friends with it, and I've used it to document my walks around the beautiful landscape that we have here. As far as technical specifications go, it's got a metal body, it's rated to IPX1, which means it's rated to vertical droplets of water landing on the equipment, and it weighs 247 grams in weight. What that means is, as well as sitting nicely in between the 17 and 25mm focal lengths, it also sits nicely between Olympus's 1.2 Pro prime lenses and 1.8 prime lenses in size and weight as well. So when people ask what's it for, when they've got two 17mm lenses and two 25mm lenses already, what's the point of it? Well, you're starting to see a bigger picture here, or certainly I am. I wanted to go wider than 25mm. I've been shooting 25mm a lot with Panasonic's 1.7. It was my first prime lens, very good lens for the money. Sometimes I was finding myself wanting to go wider. I looked at the 17mm lenses. The 1.8 isn't weatherproof. Now, a few times I didn't take the Panasonic lens out with me because it wasn't weatherproof, so my next lens had to be weatherproof. That left the 17mm 1.2 Pro. Now, that costs £1,200 new, and it's a bit bigger than this again. Now, not really too big as such, but for me, I pack a lot of kit into a tank bag, so size and weight in the tank bag is a bit of a premium, and on top of that, I don't want to be carrying around £1,200 in lens alone in a tank bag on the bike. So the size, price and focal length of this for me was really a sweet spot. It gives me a little bit wider lens, weather sealing, and I'm not overly conscious about carrying it around in my tank bag. I've talked about the size and weight compared to the Olympus 1.2 and 1.8 primes, but for me this is replacing the Panasonic 25 1.7, and although a fair bit heavier, it isn't much bigger and won't take up more room in my bag. It balances well on all bodies. It's neither too big for the EM52, as demonstrated here by my lovely wife, nor does it feel too small on the EM1X. I had the chance filming with Pete to give it a quick spin. It's a bit of a Goldilocks size really, at least for me and my large hands and fat fingers. So, what's the glaring omission on this lens? Well, unlike the rest of the Pro lenses and some of the premium lenses, there's no manual focus clutch, so no hard stops on the focus ring either. Now, is that really an issue? Well, it depends what your main use is for the lens. If you're shooting primarily video, having hard stops is going to make your life attaining focus a lot easier, and if you're shooting astro, it makes it easier to get infinity focus, to focus on the stars. But I shoot mainly photo and some casual video, and say I used it the other day to help a local photographer make a review, and for a documentary style review relying on the autofocus, I found the autofocus worked very well. It really locks onto the face and seemed to hold on to it. We'll run some tests with that now here and do some manual pulls as well to see what it focuses like on manual focus. So here we have an unused clip from Pete Wilkins' Tog on 2 Wheels and his review of the EM1X. I've included this clip just to show you how the face detect autofocus works in action when both I and the subject are moving. As you can see, even when he's turned his back momentarily, the focus has stayed on him. There's only the once or twice the focus has been a little bit slow in keeping up, but for this type of shot I think it works very well. In this shot, Pete's got his back to us, so we're not using face detect autofocus, but it's still on wide area focus, just allowing the camera to pick what to focus on. It's selected to focus on Pete, and it hasn't started following the bikes as they pass, which is a good thing. As I follow the last bike, it then locks onto the bike. So, you join me today again in the wonderful scenery of Cumcan Forest Drive. The weather is a little bit kinder to us today. Excuse the mountain bike attire, I've cycled up on the mountain bike this time. We're here for the autofocus test. Now, the phase detect autofocus on the EM12 generally performs very well, so I've given it a challenging environment with some trees and branches up with me here in the foreground. So we'll see how well the face detect autofocus does. So I'll move forward to the camera. Move backwards a bit, step all the way back now. If we speed it up this time. Interestingly, reviewing this footage, it appears the autofocus has kept up better when I was moving quickly rather than slowly, which is unexpected. Right. Somewhere else where other systems struggle is when the person in front of the camera closes their eyes. I've had another brand of camera shoot straight to the background every time somebody blinks. Generally don't experience it with the Olympus. We find out when I review the footage now, but close my eyes and open them again, probably locked onto my face, they normally do. So, another autofocus test, but this time using the EM52. On the EM12 with the phase detect autofocus, I expect the CAF to work very well at tracking people's faces. It might lose your face momentarily if you move quickly, but it'll quickly lock onto it again. With cameras with contrast only autofocus, it might not. My experience with the 25 1.7 wasn't very good with video or CAF. People say that lens is as good as the Ollie 25 1.8 and for photos. It is, but for video, the CAF didn't work at all. It would pulse back and forward, it'd lose people's faces and wouldn't find them again, because it wasn't designed to work with Olympus contrast detect cameras. It was designed to work with Panasonic CAF. So that might be a possible reason why, but it wasn't just my own experiences. I've seen reviews where people have tried video tests between the two, and the Olympus worked a lot better. So I thought I'd give it a try on the contrast detect to see if the face detect works on that. Now I expect, being an Olympus Pro lens, that it does. It might be a little bit more laggy and slow to pick up the face than the EM12, but we'll find that out now. So if I move towards the camera, now if I step back, move towards the camera again, step back faster. So reviewing this footage, the contrast detect autofocus of the EM52 has been a lot slower than the hybrid AF of the EM12, but it does still find the face again. Let's do the close eye test, see if it stays on the face. On the cameras with contrast detect only autofocus, the autofocus performance isn't fast enough for action or anything fast moving, but it is still good enough for interview style videos where you're going to stand still in front of the camera. Just a quick little note, the videos I've been shooting on the Olympus this afternoon, I've not had an external mic plugged in. The glorious Welsh weather has decided to make us wet again, so I don't want to open up the port to plug a mic in, so we are using the internal microphone. Now I'm just going to show some autofocusing using the touchscreen on the back. So when you're operating an Olympus camera, you can touch the areas that you want it to focus, and it does work quite well. So if I show you I'm going to touch the bag now, and it pulls to the bag. I'm going to touch the bottle now, pulls to the bottle, touch the bag now, touch the bottle now, and I'm going to touch the background now, and I'm going to go back to the bottle now. So that's quite a nice feature. If you haven't enabled face detect, or you've got autofocus set to one point, you don't need to turn the camera off to reset your focus point. You can touch on the screen to tell the autofocus what to do. Right, I'm just going to do some manual focus pulls here now, just to test it out. We're focused on the bottle. Slowly turn it out to the bag. Slowly pull it back to the bottle. Oh, tripod just moved in, sorry about that. Slowly back to the bag, speeding up just a little bit though. Back to the bottle, a little bit faster again, back to the bag, faster again back to the bottle, faster again back to the bag, faster again back to the bottle. Now what I'm trying to show here is once you hit a certain focus speed, it accelerates the way, there it goes. So it will accelerate the rate at which it focuses, like a lot of electronic focusing, which means you can't set it up on a focus puller and expect it to work reliably. It won't be the same between the 2 points every time you move it back and forth. But unless you use the camera on a rig, that's not an issue anyway, and it does seem to stay quite linear until a point. I was moving it quite fast by the time it started accelerating, so the manual focus is nice and smooth with a good resistance there, and it is usable, but past a certain point it does accelerate, which you just need to be wary of. So how does it perform for photos? Well, while I was out first time using it, shooting video, we came across a homeless person in the middle of Swansea, and he wanted the fellow photographer I was with to get his story out there. So with his permission, I took a couple of photos of him. Now I was switched from video into aperture priority. I had all focus points active on the camera and face detect on, which has never failed me in the past. Now when I got home, I found all the pictures of him out of focus, and along with a couple of other photos I'd taken that day in between shooting video. Now I found it strange because the video appeared to be good, although video isn't as sharp as photos or as detailed as photos anyway. So to put my mind at ease, I performed a couple of quick sharpness tests, only centre sharpness. Now I used a small centre focus point, and relied on single autofocus. I did use a flash because it was dark, and I was in a rush, so I hadn't balanced shutter speeds, and as the aperture closes down, you can see the color balance changing as it lets in less natural light, but it kind of shows the point for the sharpness anyway. So this is the original image. Now if we look at the center at f1.4, we can see that it's still nicely sharp, it's usable. 2.8 sharpens up again, and by the time we get to f4 it's really good. And then the difference between f4, f6.3 and f8 isn't a lot. It does sharpen up a little bit more again, especially in the corners, but I have got no hesitation in shooting this at f1.4. So back to the reason why I did that sharpness test. I was concerned about having a lot of soft images the first day that I used it. I'm going to put that down to user error and rushing, because I've used it 3 or 4 times since and not had any issues, and the sharpness test was good. So you might ask, what's the point in mentioning it if it was just me being crap? Maybe do the sharpness test, which might be of some use to people interested in this lens. So that's the only reason I mention it, really. The other thing other people have mentioned with this lens is chromatic aberration. Now, wide open, I've seen a little bit, but nothing that overly bothers me. If you look at this picture I took of a motorcycle while we was in Swansea, it's not a very nice picture, but I knew the angle of what light was there was going to create chromatic aberration against the engine, and there is, if we zoom into the image, some purple fringing on the engine casing, but it's nowhere near the worst that I've seen. I've shot a Samyang 35mm 1.8 on Sony, which is a well regarded lens, and out in daylight you need to stop it down to 2.8, maybe 3.2 to get rid of really bad purple fringing that can be seen without zooming into the image. So again, I've got no issues with it. It's what is there is easily removed in post. If we get a sunny day, it'd be nice to see if that brings out more purple chromatic aberration against steel like it does, and it would be nice to see if it gets any worse, the green in the trees. That's the other place that I've seen chromatic aberration. If you look at this picture of a robin that I took, if you look at the trees in the background, especially the out of focus trees, you can see a little bit of green, but again, nothing that concerns me. Okay, so let's look at some sample images to see what the image quality is like off this lens. So we got a nice carved wooden scene here. You can see how nicely the lens has rendered the autumn colours, and the green's very natural. Now let's have a look at the feathered bokeh that Olympus advertise with these Pro Primes. So this is shot at f1.4, and as you can see, the focus point was the eyeball of the statue, and it's very sharp with a lot of detail. Now by the time we come down to the breast of the bird here, you can see the focus is just starting to fall off, and by the time it gets to the wing, it's out of focus, and even the focus roll-off area is very smooth. By the time we get to the owl, it's very out of focus, and the background and the trees are also smooth, so it's a very pleasing bokeh off this lens. If we take another look at another example, here we have a tank of a motorbike outside the Owl's Nest motorcycle cafe in Llandudno, and again some nice subject separation there. And the food, now look at that, plenty of sharpness and detail there in the centre of the frame, and again provide a nice subject separation to draw your eye into the food in the centre of the frame there. What a burger, huh? Sticking with the EM52 now, in conclusion, what do I think of the new 20mm 1.4, the first lens from OM Systems? Well, I've got to be honest, I'm impressed. It's exactly what I was looking for in my first Pro Prime. A little bit wider than 25, weather sealed, small, light and fast. It's perfect for me, but we brushed over a few different topics earlier, but I think it'll be a good lens for a range of people. Anybody like me looking to step up from Panasonic 1.7s or Olympus 1.8 primes to a pro lens that's faster and weather sealed, this is a good option. It's not as expensive as the 1.2s, it's a bit smaller and lighter. It sits in between them in aperture and speed, so on that side of things it makes a good upgrade. It might also be useful for somebody that's already got the 1.2 Pros as well. If you've got the 17 and 25 but you don't want to pack two big lenses in your bag, this might be a perfect single lens to carry instead, especially if you're going out into adverse conditions and you don't want to be changing lenses. So there's a good range of use there. The quality out of it is really nice. For photos, we've got the really nice feather bokeh wide open. It's got good sharpness, even wide open. There are chromatic aberrations there, but I consider them to be fairly low for a 1.4 lens. And by the time you get up over f2, they're almost non-existent. So yeah, really good all-round lens. The one thing, as we discussed, that it is missing is the manual focus clutch of the other Pro lenses. For me, it's not a deal breaker. For some people it might be, but the manual focus is still one of the best electronic manual focus lenses that I've used. It really doesn't start accelerating until you start moving it quite fast. Up until a point, it did feel very linear, so it is a usable manual focus, even though it hasn't got the hard stops. So yeah, I'm very impressed with this lens. I'm very happy with it. I'm sure a lot of people will be. I also think it's a good sign, this coming out from OM Systems. It's a sign that they are going to continue the brand. They've also announced a 40-150 f4 Pro, so something in between the Plastic Fantastic 40-150 f4 at 5.6 and the 40-150 2.8. And again, it might be another lens like this one. A lot of people might say with the lenses they've already got, what's the point? But if you've got people who want to put a 40-150 in their bag, but they want something a bit better than a Plastic Fantastic and something that's weather sealed, but without carrying the size of weight of the 2.8, that might be ideal for them. Personally, I think the 2.8 is going to be my next purchase. I did borrow that 2 weeks ago, and I've heard people say it's the best zoom on the Olympus system, and I thought it was pretty fantastic, to be honest. I've got the 100-400 f5 to 6.3. That's a very nice lens with an amazing reach, but the image quality was a step up again. So yeah, thanks for listening. I hope that those of you that are interested in this lens, my information, my ramblings have helped you decide. So goodbye for now.